We're here at the PowerTech generator. It is on the driver's side, the two folding doors. I have Dustin holding one right now. Inside here you'll find these nice stainless covers. They are labeled PowerTech. To open the doors and remove the doors, lift out on the little tab, twist to the side, and pull the door out. Gently set it on the ground, foam side down. Don't set it on your metal side or you will cause damage to it over time. Do the same thing with the forward door. Now, the basic way to describe the generator, it is just a engine that makes electricity. This part of the generator is just standard motor. Make sure you check the fluids in it daily. The antifreeze, the oil, check your air filter monthly. Follow whatever the owner's manual says for the actual generator itself. Now a little hint for the generator. Even though this tank to the right is full, on this upper portion you'll see a reservoir tank. During your first month of use, it may shut off once. If it does shut off, what it typically means, even though this is full, there's an air bubble up inside this reservoir, and it reached the sensor and it's reading that there is no antifreeze. What will happen is it'll shut off and the screen over here on the left will say low coolant, shutdown initiated, something along that lines. What it means, let the vehicle cool down, lift up on the little black tab right here, open this reservoir cap, and fill this upper reservoir with the 50-50 solution of antifreeze and water, distilled water. Let's clarify that. Once it's full, put the cap back on and try to start the vehicle of the generator again. It should start right up with no problems. As long as you don't see antifreeze leaking everywhere. Antifreeze, once again, it takes a while for it to evaporate. So this shouldn't get low like that, but because we install these from a cold start, sometimes they'll have a little air bubble inside the actual reservoir tank itself. Your oil fill is the little oil right there. It's labeled with a little oil can. Your oil filter is the one here to the right, which is mounted horizontally. Your fuel filter is the one that is upright. If you follow that, it goes right down to an automated electric fuel pump. It does have a little filter built onto the fuel pump that says filter service 200 hours. So you do need to make sure you change this little filter out within 200 hours. Your oil dipstick is the black twist knob right there. Your air filter is inside the canister here to the left. And I want to point out one little thing. You notice if I rock this little bad boy, it is on airbags. It has an air suspension underneath each foot of the generator. If you'll notice, labeled on the actual airbag right above it, it says 35 PSI. They all tie together and they go right here to this Schrader T-fitting. About once a month, take an air gauge, check and make sure this is at 35 PSI. If it's too low, what will happen is you'll notice you're going to get a lot of vibration. And if they get really low, you'll cause damage to the airbags themselves. So make sure you keep those full of air. This generator, as I mentioned, it is a diesel generator. It does run off the main tanks. It will use about 1 gallon to 2 gallons an hour when you have everything on inside the coach. So being that you have an extremely large fuel tank on your passenger side, you will get a lot of runtime out of the actual generator itself. Just make sure you don't let this thing run all the way out of diesel. If you do, it's extremely bad for the engine and for the generator itself. Now the generator should cut out at about 1/4 of a tank. That is to prevent you from running completely out of fuel in the actual main tank. That way you can actually make it to a gas station and get some more fuel. And by gas station I mean diesel. Don't put gas in this thing. Right now the screen says, I'm going to get the pleasure of removing the little piece of plastic on the front. It says, waiting to start. In this mode, I can use the VMUX screen inside and start the generator. If someone comes out here and does an oil change, what they will do is they will push off. It will say not in auto start enabled, and they will push run. That way they can start the generator without going in your lovely bus. Now, if you want to start it from inside, you have to make sure that after they've done run, you push off, push auto, and it will go back to the waiting to start mode. If it's not in that mode, you're going to be wondering why your switches inside aren't working, and that's exactly why. This little switch right below the screen is a master kill switch. So you can see I turned it off, I just turned it back on. If extended storage times, if you're not leaving the vehicle plugged in, you can flip this down to kill the battery to the generator. Just remember, you got to flip this back up. Being that you should be keeping the vehicle plugged in, you should never have to mess with this switch. On the outside of the generator itself is a, it says fan breaker, and it's on the actual side. There is another breaker tucked back in here that you cannot see, and it is the actual breaker for the generator itself. So if I mentioned that if you had the generator on and you left everything on the panel, you tried to start the generator, that a breaker may trip on the generator, it's going to be this little breaker hidden back here in the back. You have to reach back and make sure it is in the up position so that it is enabled. Same thing with the fan breaker. If something goes wrong with the fans, they are flipped up for them to work. There's a switch. Make sure it's in the up position. How it is right now is how it should be when you get it. It's how it'll be in normal operation. If there's any issues with it, once again, review the PowerTech owner's manual. I do recommend that you take a picture of this little PowerTech label right there. It gives you all your information, your serial numbers, your model numbers. That way when you call in, you have a cloud backed up version rather than relying on a sticker that over time will get dirty and grimy and worn down as people touch it, and it's exposed a little bit to the elements. I'm going to put the doors back on, starting with the front one again. Make sure you're careful when you're putting them back in. These are made of stainless. Some of the edges are a little sharp and they will scratch or cut you. And then make sure you shut the rear door first.